Hello everybody, welcome to round 6 of the Ntcc Championship, the National Touring Car Championship. It's great to be back after another week for another round. Last week we saw these guys going around the Nürburgring GP circuit. This week we've got them at Tokyo Expressway, I believe it's the East Inner Loop. Looking forward to seeing which cars come out on top, which one's the fastest, who can make the most of it. I'm picking an Aston though. I'm picking an Aston Martin. Last week's race winner for both races, V Papa AT. I think we're going to start calling him Daddy. It's probably a good name for him. I'll make sure to refer to him as Daddy every time I mention him in the race. That man won by about 30 seconds in both races last week. But we're excited for round 6. We're excited for some good racing at Tokyo Expressway. We could see some very interesting racing going on. We've got a mix of handling cars and power cars, so it should make for some really interesting stuff. A lot of Volkswagen Beetles, a couple of Beamers, Supras and Aston Martins. So the guys are currently doing some practice. We're not far away from starting up here, so I'm going to switch us over to a hot lap example of the track and show you how to go purple on Tokyo Expressway. So here we go in the McLaren F1 GDR. I hope you guys can hear the audio. I haven't actually tested that as of yet. So down a long stretch, this is where the power cars are really going to shine with that top speed. Heading up towards turn number 1, braking just after the 150 meter board. You got to scrub off just the right amount of speed for this corner so that you don't go too wide at the exit. Be very careful getting on the power. And then no brakes for turn 2. Just coasting through, getting on the power as early as possible. Then it's flat out through this section, 2 long-winded S's. You're going to stay on the power all the way through. Again, the power car's still in their strong spot of the track. Coming up, just braking after the 100 meter board, chucking it into the left-hander and then getting on the power as early as possible. You've got to be very brave through there. Round the right-hander, coming up to another right-hander, off the power but no brakes. Get on the power as early as you can again, and the same again for the left-hander. It's almost like a really open-ended chicane. You've got to just get off the brakes and then swing it in. On the brakes for the right-hander going uphill, get as close as the wall you can. You saw a nick of the wall there, that's how close you got to get. Through the left-hander, another corner where you just coast through and get on the power as early as you possibly can. Down towards the final corner of the track, you're going to brake just after the 150 meter board, slow it right down, all the way down to first gear in most cars, through the hairpin, double apex. Be very careful on the power. You hear it shift a second there quite early before even maxing out first gear. And then on the long straight all the way back down to the finish line. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the power cars are going to be very favoured on this circuit, although we are probably going to see a lot of slipstreaming going on here. So across the line we go, just under 2 minutes to do a lap, 1 minute 58.2 to be exact, with balance and performance on, these guys are driving with. So this should be a very interesting race, and the great thing about it is because it's got such a long straight, we're probably going to see a lot of guys who are slower keeping up for the majority of the race, which is very important. So with a slipstream, it's really easy for the slower guys to keep up with the faster guys. So that's going to be something to look out for. So those top guys are going to find it really difficult to just run away with this one like they did last week. After his debut last week, we've seen how strong Daddy can be, as we've started calling him now. So excited to see how he does in this one, although I don't expect him to run away like he did last week, although he isn't the best car for it. But all sorts of players to watch out for in this one. So we'll switch over to the race screen. So just watching some guys doing their practice. So we've got a few people on track at the moment. Slapper's mate in the Volkswagen Beetle, last year's champion, wearing the Ntcc champion livery. He was having some connection issues last week and actually couldn't get into race 1. So it's good to see him back and having another go again this week. Currently with the second fastest time on the leaderboard is Chops in the Toyota Supra. Night King, someone we didn't see last week too much in the Volkswagen Beetle. The Red Bull livery, a very cool livery on that one, we do like that. And then currently with the third fastest time on the leaderboard, Rugworth in the Lexus. And the man to watch out for, as mentioned by Daddy, Ando from Gridline Racing, driving a Qantas liveried Aston Martin V12 Vantage. So also competing in the wheel-to-wheel series, something I've heard a little bit about recently. So he's going to be one to watch out for at this track. I believe he has the fastest qualifying time going into it. So the grid is going to be organised based on qualifying times that guys have done in their free time during the week. So we've got every chance of seeing the fastest man on the front of the grid. So this man, and one to watch out for. So Mick is someone who competes in the... Oh, I forgot what it's called now. The Support Desk New Zealand Championship. That I was competing in until I had some disconnecting issues and decided to commentate on it instead. So our race winner from last week in both races, including a reverse grid race, definitely going to be one to watch out for here. He's got pace to burn and tyres to shred. Down in P7, someone who we didn't see a lot of last week, Chikamak in the Porsche 911 RSR, wearing, oh, what kind of green is that? I do like the yellow and black, but I can't tell what it's based on. But that is someone we'll be watching out for this race. It'll be quite good through the technical sections on the back of the track, but we're not sure how to go on the main straights. But with the tow, it might be quite handy around here. I do remember the Cayman Group 4 being good at this track, purely because with a tow, it's just got the pace. I believe a newcomer to the series, Chef Todd. I think this is only his second round of competition. Driving the Volkswagen Beetle. A lot of Beetles in this series for some reason or another. I'm not sure why we've got so many people driving it. As you can see there on the back, just in the middle down the bottom, you've got the Support Desk New Zealand logo, and on the front in the middle as well. So he's also competing in the Support Desk New Zealand livery, New Zealand Championship. So another championship privately run by a local driver. So that's quite good to see him repping the Support Desk in this championship as well. Back to the top. I believe he's still our point leader for the championship, MJ Scatters, and setting the pace early on in the practice with the fastest time on the track at the moment, leading the point standings as it sits. Not the greatest performance for him last week, but he managed to hold on to that point lead just because he had such a large gap to the guys behind him already. So people to watch out for, Papa, or Daddy as we're starting to call him now, MJ Scatters, the point leader for the championship at the moment. Ando, a newcomer to the series, a gridline racer, and the fastest qualifier for this event. And I think those are the three people we're looking out for. I would say Aussie Hypnotic, but he's unfortunately not able to compete this week. So 3 guys to watch out for, but as I've said before, we're probably going to see the slipstream coming into play here and causing a whole lot of people to keep up where they maybe shouldn't, or to go ahead where they maybe shouldn't. Here we go then. Race 1 of round 6 for the Ntcc Championship, the National Touring Car Championship, about to go green. Our first look at the grid, Ando on P1, as we talked about before. People to look out for, MJ Scatters in P3. Slappers has been mentioned quietly as well, and Daddy down in P8. Our winner from last week's race, also someone to watch out for. So, let's get amongst it. Oh, wrong view. There we go. Here we go then. Green we are. The championship car on the right hand side gets away good. Ando in P1 gets away well as well. All scattered 2 abreast all the way down the field. The Aston Martin pulling away at the moment, it seems, from the V-dub of Slappers Mate, as we make the approach towards T1 through the uphill section onto the plateau. MJ Scatters and Ando are going to be battling for P1 into T1. It looks like Scatters has got by on the inside. It's going to be very good for his race. Does he take the position? Yes, he does. And looking back through the field, we've got 3 wide action, 2 wide action, all the way back down to the bottom of the field. Bit of carnage there through T1. We've got a penalty back there as well. And a penalty for MJ Scatters on the exit of turn 2. He's hit the wall there and copped a 1.5. We're going to have a look back at the turn 1. Let's have a quick look here. On board with Nismo here, we've got some 3 wide action there, a penalty further back that we didn't quite catch. Bit of action in front of him and a couple of sideways moments for the guys behind as well. Currently, mostly clean enough. A couple of penalties for a couple of guys in the early stages there. So we've settled down with Ando in P1 at the moment, the man who's been talked about so much. Your reigning champion Slappers Mate in P2 in the Volkswagen, closing up on the Aston at the moment as it sits. That V-dub looking a lot stronger through the handling section of this track. Papa making his way from P8 to P3 there in the Aston Martin. That's a huge rise through the field. And the other man we've talked about so much, the current point leader for the championship, MJ Scatters, in P4. So that battle that we talked about, and we've seen the lead change here. Slappers goes through to P1. Probably not a decision I would have made if I was in his position at the moment, given that that means that he's now giving a toe to the guys behind. And he's going to have to be pushing as hard as he can all the way down the straight. And those Astons are going to find it very, very easy to go by him here. So, looks like Ando just erring on the side of caution at this stage. Looking at just sitting in the toe for this part of the race. We've seen Cosmic Spirit dive into the pits to get off his mediums after lap 1 of 19. So Slappers, mate, somehow managing to sit in the front. It looks like maybe Ando and Papa may be trying to save fuel at this point in the race. But these three have broken away a little bit from this man, MJ Scatters, whose penalty has come down a little bit. I don't believe there's any rules around burning them at any point in the lap, so it'll just come down gradually over the rest of the race, thankfully for him. But his job now is to get onto the back of this group, and we've just seen a little bit of action there from the guys in P5 and 6. We're going to go back and have a look at that through this section of corners. So Nismo here on the right with Night King on his left hand side, just wide, and a bit of contact there, I think, between the two of them. Yep, just a little bit, but not enough to force a penalty to either of them. So a good battle between those two there. We'll have a look here, still side by side through this section of the track. This is some very, very good racing from these two guys. Around the outside goes Night King through the right-hander, and he's got the inside for the left-hander here. Can he get through? There's no brakes for these corners, don't forget, but these guys might be erring on the side of caution given that they may be off the racing line. But it looks like Nismo's going to hold on to the position for now as Chef Todd gets involved and goes up the inside of Night King. Night King with the inside for the left-hander here, so almost every corner they go through, there's a penalty for Night King there for hitting the wall, so he's just gone in a little bit too hot through that corner. So, difficult part of the race for Night King at this stage. Nismo managing to hold on to 5th position. Goes a little bit wide and allows him up the inside. Can Night King take it down the straight? I think that Lexus will have the legs. Slappers, mate, still in P1 heading down the straight. The Aston Martin's opting to save fuel all the way down at the moment, it seems. We'll jump on board with Ando. Got a little bit of bump drafting going on here. So, perhaps a change in the penalty system from the last update. No more penalties for bump drafting. This is mutually beneficial for these guys, and they've actually pulled away from Daddy. I'm going to call him Papa for a second. I'm going to have to... Alright, just checking out Ethan's comment there about taking the lead at the final corner. A good point made there from Ethan about how long the straight being, meaning that there could be 2 slipstreams, one after the other, that are used in effect. So if you go by before that corner and the person behind you goes by early in the straight, you have all the opportunity to overtake them again going into T1. A little bit argy-bargy through that section there. Slappers is pushing pretty hard here, showing the form that we didn't see last week, that we were expecting to see from him given the livery that he's been wearing. So have a look at these guys. So a gap starting to form between these guys. There's now 0.9 of a second, or nearly a whole second, between Slappers and Ando, but we can expect him to bring that back down on the main straight, given the power of the Aston Martin, although he's falling into the clutches of Daddy here. We'll have a look from Daddy's point of view. What's going on between him and Ando? Will he go for a move into the final corner of the lap? I don't think he's close enough. He pulls out of the slipstream. Looks like he's a little bit later on the brakes, so he goes to the inside. He takes the position, nice and clean. And they're giving him all the room in the world there. And now down the straight they come. How much time can Daddy pull back on Slappers here? The gap sits at 1.5. It's consistently coming down at the moment. The Aston Martin should have the pace all the way down the straight here. We've got Ando going by as well. So Ando looking to take that position back from Daddy along the main straight, although he's not able to pull the pace on him that we've expected to see due to the slipstream. 3/10, they've brought the gap down to Slappers Mate at the moment, but it doesn't look like they're going to get close enough to make a move at any point, and they're not actually in the tow, so Slappers may end up pulling away throughout the rest of the lap. So a little bit of battling going on here between Ando and Daddy. Probably not the best thing for both of their races. They do need to work together a little bit here to catch Slappers, although we don't know what tyre compounds these guys are on, what they started on, or what they're wearing at the moment. Coming into the mix again, MJ Scatters, the point leader for the championship at the moment. He's going to need a good performance here because the gap was cut down quite a lot last week. So he needs a good finish in both of these races in order to maintain that point lead, especially with a fast charging Daddy coming through the field at a rate of knots. Slight raise of the wall there for Ando with the rear wing, kicking up some sparks and leaving some paint behind. Once again doing it there as well. Pushing that car to the limit at the moment, it seems, of the track and its tyre life. So now we've got the 3 Aston Martins together on track, all within about a second of each other. And nearly 3 seconds between Scatters and the leader, Slappers. Coming into the final corner, Ando goes up the inside of Daddy. Daddy tries to get the switchback on him there. Can't quite make it happen, so he has to let him go. They're all still within range of each other, although there is a big gap formed between Daddy and Ando now. So Daddy will not have that tow down the straight. So you're going to have to allow Scatters to go by and catch up to Ando for him. Ando now sitting 2 seconds away from Slappers, so a second pulled out on the second half of that lap for Slappers there. So he's looking pretty good at the moment. The question is, how much fuel is he using and how hard is he pushing those tyres? I'm not sure how many stops these guys are going to have to make, but I'm expecting to see a 2-stop. I believe we're running 5 times tyre wear at the moment. So while it settles down here, actually no, it's not settling down at all. We've got MJ Scatters going for a move on Daddy. This is his first move of the race, working to get through the field all the way from the bottom. Oh, no, sorry, that was Daddy. He came from 8th, but made his ascension in the first lap. But MJ Scatters, I believe, has been sitting 3rd or 4th for the majority of the race, so he's now looking to get into a spot on the podium at this point of the race and take on the Dadster, our winner from last week's races. So pushing him all the way here, staying right on his back, looking for an opportunity to get by, but Daddy offering no room whatsoever to get by. Not really many overtaking opportunities at this point in the lap. Pushing that car all the way to the edge again, as we've seen from Ando already this race. Daddy pushing it now through the majority of this lap. Look how close to the barrier he gets there. That's amazing. Hard on the brakes through the right-hander. No brakes for the left-hander, as we've spoken about already. So through these guys go. The gap to Ando coming down a little bit through that section. So now down to less than a second. Not quite the exit of Ando there for Daddy. MJ Scatters, is he going to go for a move into the hairpin? Not quite. Both a little bit late on the brakes. A little bit of contact there through that corner. Can Scatters make a move on the home straight? Let's see what he can do down here. The gap between them, just over 0.6. Scatters with the slipstream. Not quite within the toe of Ando, but he is gaining a slight amount. He's not going to be close enough to gain any time down the straight, so that gap is probably going to hold pretty steady for the rest of it. We're seeing the gap come down by 1/10 now for MJ Scatters to Daddy. How close can he get here? Is he going to be close enough to go for a move? Let's find out. So he's pulling. He's got the overspeed. He's going to be able to pull to the inside of this corner. I think he's close enough. Looks like he just pulls out a little bit and doesn't go for it on that attempt. Daddy's wide though. Daddy scrapes the wall. He's going to lose a bit of time for that one. Not quite enough for Scatters to make a move. So we'll step down a little bit now to P5 on the track. And we've got a good battle going on here for the top 5 position. Nismo previously in that position, but has been knocked out of it by Night King and Rugworth. Again, we're seeing the same sort of trend from Nismo, where he goes very, very high up the field on the first couple of laps, has a rocket start compared to his competitors, and then gradually falls down the order over the course of the rest of the race. So he's lost a bit of time there to these guys. He was right on top of them just before, his sister Lexus of Rugworth right in front of him there, offering some competition through this this part of the lap, but pulling away a little bit now. So it just shows a little bit of a gap in quality between the two drivers here. So Rugworth in P6, who we were just talking about, just falling a little bit back from Night King. They were all over each other at the start of this lap, but it looks like that Volkswagen is really good through those twisty parts of the second half of the lap. So quite a dangerous car to look at there, and we've actually seen the positions change between the final position of the podium and 4th place. So we're just going to have a quick look back here, see if we can catch it. We've got the two of them side by side heading down to the final corner of the race, final corner of the lap, and they've actually made some contact there, and MJ Scatters goes up into P3. A little bit of a lag issue there for Papa, so hopefully that's not affecting their race too much, and Papa's back through, actually, as we see here on the main straight. So it looks like he's fighting firm to maintain that 3rd position. So here he goes down the main straight, across the finish line, or across the start-finish line, and through he goes into P3. So a little bit of position changing for these two guys here. Doing quite a lot of that over the course of this race. So very evenly matched, it seems, as Scatters goes up the inside, forces Papa wide out of T2. He concedes the position and lets Daddy go through for that time of asking. So MJ Scatters opening the door as much as he possibly can, and Daddy putting up the strongest defense he possibly can at the moment, it seems, and trying to maintain that position and not allow Scatters through. At this point, it's really costing both of them quite a lot, because as you can see, there's now a 2.5 second gap to Ando, which is not going to be easy to bring down unless they undercut him at some point. And I don't know if that's going to be an effective strategy for this track, especially with the slipstream, although given that none of them have the slipstream at the moment, it may be worthy to consider it. MJ Scatters going a little bit wide there, falling off the back of Papa for a moment. He pulls it back towards the final hairpin. Can he get a launch out of the final corner? Give himself an opportunity to catch Daddy down the main straight. So here we go then. Daddy on the power, Scatters on the power, the gap between them less than 0.6 of a second and coming down already. So it looks like a better exit for Scatters before even getting into the toe, and that toe is going to help him all the way down the straight. So here we go then. The gap sits at less than 0.4 and it's coming down with a vengeance. Up the back of Daddy comes MJ Scatters. Papa moves to the right hand side to defend the line into the first corner, but it's a bit too early to be thinking about that as MJ Scatters goes past. He's got the overspeed still. It's going to take a moment for the speeds to plateau here. Daddy just managing to hold that inside line actually as the speeds equalise towards the end of the straight. Who's got the bigger kahunas here? Who's going to break later for the corner? It looks like it's going to be Daddy. They go side by side through T1. Who's going to be losing out here? It looks like it's going to be Daddy. He backs out as they turn into the corner and Scatters closes the door. So finally a solid position change there for Scatters. Is he going to allow Daddy through again, or is he going to put up a charge to try catch Ando? It looks like the gap has come down slightly between the two of them. Well, Daddy goes down the inside through the right-hander. Wow, these guys are fighting hammer and fist to overtake each other through this part of the lap, and Daddy loses out there. So into the wall he goes. Probably not the best place to overtake there, but we'll have a look at it again. So Daddy side by side with him. A little bit of lag is probably going to affect these guys here. He goes a little bit late on the brakes and understeers straight into the wall. So that's what happened there for you guys. So that puts him 1.5 seconds behind Scatters. So the podium positions now pretty clean and clear at the moment. The gap to Slappers, mate, though, nearly 4 seconds as it sits. That Beetle absolutely smashing it around here at the moment. An excellent drive from Slappers so far to pull away from these guys. And it shows that they're not really working together enough to catch him down the straights. And they're fighting amongst each other a little bit too much here, because I think the Aston Martin may have had the advantage for most of this race. So we'll step back down to the action. Actually, we've had Slappers, mate, come into the pits. So he's going for what is essentially going to be an undercut. So he is pitting at the end of lap 8. which means that he will make it to 16 laps on his second set of softs. But no, he goes onto the mediums when he comes out, actually, and comes out nearly 8 seconds behind Daddy, but that gap's going to only increase as he comes down to T1, because it's a long, long straight for him to pick up speed and catch up to these guys, because they've already hit top speed at this point of the lap. So he's still accelerating. He's going to be accelerating all the way down to that first corner. We've got Night King coming up in the background. I'm not sure if he's made his first stop yet. I think it was Cosmic Spirit who we saw go in first. So he does not owe a pit stop, and he's actually making a bit of an ascension through the field at the moment. So he's up with Nismo now, who was previously in P5 not too long ago, and he goes round the outside into T1. An excellent move there from him on Nismo. Little bit of weaving in the background there as Nismo tries to find his way through again, or find a clear line through the corner. But Cosmic Spirit managing to hold his own against that Lexus in the Aston Martin. The BMW of Rioff as well back there, managing to hold on to his top 10 position. He's being made to work for it at the moment, it seems. He's got a bit of a gap and a buffer back to Chef Todd behind him. So the two stoppers that we know of... Oh, wow, actually, we've just seen Rioff go up the inside of Nismo. So it looks like a mistake there from Nismo through that part of the lap. So we'll have a look here to see what happened. So he gets a dodgy entry to the chicane there, and a bad exit, which allows Rioff to make his way through. So Nismo, as we saw before we exited, he was trying to have another go at Rioff there, and it looks like Rioff has picked up a 1.2 second penalty. We'll have a look and see what that was for there, see what happens. So they're side by side through those corners there, and there's the penalty he picked up there, just on the exit of the first right-hander. So both of these guys with a penalty now, but one that should be served by both of them before the end of the race, I think. So an interesting series of events at the moment that we're seeing from these races. So Rioff manages to hold on to P9, and he's in the tow of... Well, no, he's not, sorry. He's not in the tow of Cosmic Spirit in front. Cosmic Spirit, that ascension we were just talking about, absolutely smashing it at the moment. Sorry, switched to the wrong player there. Someone we haven't spoken of too much is Chops, up in P6 quietly in almost a top 5 position. Like we were saying just before, Cosmic Spirit making a great run through the field. He's got a bit of clear air in front of him now, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, because the tow is all important around here. But because so few people are using it, it's almost more about hot lapping at this point. So doing a very good job of that hot lapping is Cosmic Spirit as he grazes the wall on exit there, maximising the track limits through T1 and 2. Stepping forward to the man I was just talking about, Chops, who we haven't mentioned too much this race, but he's quietly made his way up to P6 here, and he's all over the back of Night King, who has been consistently in P5 for almost half the race now. That's been gone so far. So Chops in the Supra, which is probably a slightly better handling version of the Aston Martin with a little bit less straight line speed. So we'll see what he can do around this part of the track. That Beetle pulling away from him though through that section, as we've seen it do on every other car before it. Very, very strong through that section, pulling the gap to 1.2 seconds. Let's see how well Chops can pull the gap back down towards the final corner. It's coming up to the final hairpin now. How late on the brakes can Chops go? Can he catch up to the Beetle in front of him? He brings the gap down to less than a second, but he gets a terrible run through the corner and drops 2/10 off his compatriot in front of him. Although his exit appears to be quite good. So similar exit to Night King, so the gap holding fairly constant here. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to go for a move into T1, but he may be able to just get onto the tow just beforehand. We'll find out as we stay on board with him here. MJ scatters into the pits, goes from softs to mediums. Looks like most of these guys going for a one stop, going for a full stint on mediums. Wow, and then there's some contact there between Chops and MJ Scatters as MJ Scatters enters the pits. I'm not sure if Chops was napping a little bit there or he was expecting him to remain ghosted on his way out the pits, but that's really slowed him down and ruined his charge on Night King down that main straight. But it has, however, promoted him to P5 with a pit stop in hand. So yet to make a pit stop is Chops as far as we know. MJ Scatters, our leading... Sorry, no, that's not correct. Our leading pitted driver is Slappers on the medium tyres at the moment. So this is his second lap on the medium, so it appears that he's probably going to be trying to go all the way to the end on these tyres. So we'll see how he goes here. possibly the best thing to do here is to actually only go for a one-stop on this track, given that you're unlikely to make up any time on the soft tyres over the medium tyres, given the nature of this track and how straight it is and how few corners you've got. But we'll see what strategy works out for these guys. We did see Cosmic Spirit pit early on his mediums, get off them after lap 1. So it looks like he'll be going for a two-stop, trying to make 2 stints on the soft tyres work. We'll see how that goes for him. He's currently sitting in P7, just behind our championship leader, MJ Scatters. So not a big gap between those two now, 2.2 seconds to be exact, but not really any battling for positions going on at the moment. We'll have a look up here towards the top of the field. There's not a big gap between Slappers and Ando. Ando yet to make a pit stop. So Slappers has the net lead at the moment, I do believe. 10 seconds between Ando and Daddy. I don't know what happened there, but Ando was well ahead of him, unless he stopped as well. Although I doubt it, given that he's still ahead of Slappers. We'll yet to find out. We'll see how far through he gets. Let's see if he goes for a pit stop later on. It looks like we did miss a little bit of action there. So this man doing a lot similar to what he did last week. And what we've seen him pulling a big gap to the guy in P2. So working on it at the moment, currently 10 seconds to the good. We'll see how far he can get in the number 46 Aston Martin. Looks like a little bit of action going on back here for P4. Chops coming up onto the back of Night King once again, as we've seen him do on the last 2 laps. This time not with any issue on the main straight of any pit exits coming through. And the gap between MJ Scatters and Cosmic Spirit appears to be increasing once again. We've just had an overtake from Nismo on Chef Todd through that corner there, so we'll have another look at that one there. The Lexus up the inside of the Volkswagen. So he got a bit of an entry on him in T1, and he managed to hold the inside line through T2. Chef Todd into the wall and allows Nismo through into P8. So a good run from Nismo there, making up a position after losing so many. We did see him in P5 before, of course, so he has dropped down the order a little bit. Scrapes the wall on the exit there. Does that allow Chef Todd to make a move? No, Nismo goes defensive and holds his position. A little bit of a tussle going on here, not something we've seen too much of through this part of the race. Well, maybe we'll see a bit more towards the end when the strategies start all coming into play. We'll see how we go here. Chef Todd gets a run on him out of the second to last corner there and gets by in the Beetle. So onto the main straight he comes, and we've got our leader into the pits with 9% fuel remaining. We didn't have a look at the other guys who've come through at the moment, but the 11-second gap probably not going to hold up here. I think Ando may have already made a pit stop. We don't know. So we'll have to find out. But out in P3 comes Daddy, as we've started calling him. We've got Cosmic Spirit and Chops, the man making an ascension through the field into the pits. Well, both of these guys making a bit of an ascension. So they come in with a bit more fuel than we saw Scatters with, I think it was, that we were talking about just before. Just over the 10% mark. So managing to save a little bit more fuel, it seems. That Supra, not too bad on fuel, I don't think, especially given that it's supposed to be shifted a little bit early most of the time in any case. So Nismo then promoted up to P7. He loses out to Chef Todd, as we saw before, just before the final hairpin. So a little bit wide through T1, probably not accounting for slipstream there. Extra pace down the main straight. But he'll probably be looking for an opportunity on that bug through the second half of the lap, or just trying to stay in touch so that he can have a go later on. So a man with the lead, Ando 787, the newcomer, who's been talked about so much, living up to the hype so far, currently with a 1.5 second lead to Slappers behind, who is gaining through this section, as we've seen him do many times in the Volkswagen Beetle. So bringing the gap down almost to just under 1.5 seconds there. Through this section they go. Slapper's looking to gain as much time as he can here, because once they get onto the straight, Ando's just going to pull away once again. Fastest lap of the race for Ando so far, so it looks like he has really been performing. So he must have pitted at some point, and we must have missed that, unfortunately. Perhaps he pitted and didn't fuel up, and he's been saving fuel. We don't know, and we're not sure. We'll find out for a little while as of yet. Here we go then, down the main straight. The gap over 1.5 seconds now and extending as Ando stretches the legs of that Aston Martin. We've got Night King less than 3 seconds behind Slapper's mate here. The previous season champion. So in a little bit of no man's land at the moment is Slapper's mate. We'll see if his strategy and Ando's strategies bring them a bit closer together towards the end of the race. Perhaps Ando may have used a bit more fuel than the Beetle. One of them may have to fuel up for the final lap if they're running a 1 lap on the medium tyres. But we're yet to find out. So nearly 2 seconds separating the two of them as they enter the T1. Not too much going on further down the field. We've got a little bit of a small gap between P4 and P5. I don't think Papa close enough to the man in front of him to think about going for a move over 1.5 seconds on either side of him of clean air. He'll be pushing to try catch Night King in front of him in the Volkswagen Beetle. Although we know that the Beetle has the advantage through this part of the track. So we'll see how that goes down. We're expecting to see a much closer race in the beginning, and we did see that for a little while until Slappers started pulling away in the second half of the lap, or in the back section of the track, I should say. Ando looking like, Daddy looking like he's pushing quite hard at the moment through this section of the track. We'll skip back forward to the guys at the front. 1.5 seconds separating them now, so a larger gap than we saw last lap between them at the moment. So it looks like Ando's going to continue to pull away here over the course of the next lap. Gap down to just under 1.5 there, but as they come out of the corner, 1.3 separating them. But Ando with a slightly better exit and the pace down the straight, as we've seen from that Aston Martin already. So we'll probably see him continue to pull away through this part of the lap. So a good run so far by Ando. Quite a quick racer, and we've seen that from him today. Absolutely living up to the hype that was spoken about by so many people prior to the race. Night King into the pits from P4, I believe he was in, with 3% fuel with 5 laps remaining. So a little bit of a splash and dash here for that man. Out to do 4 laps or 5 laps on the medium tyres. We've got Chef Todd and Nismo in for their fuel stop and their final stop to go on to, I believe, the mediums at this point in the race. So out comes Chef Todd with 40% fuel on the softs, Nismo on the mediums, coming out with a very similar amount of fuel in the Lexus. Both of them dropping, Chef Todd dropping down to P9, but will drop down to P10 as Rugworth comes by on the home straight, and Nismo in P11 with a 2.5 second gap to him. Nismo having to put in a little bit more fuel in than the Beetle driver in front of him. So who have we got here? We'll have a look at Cosmic Spirit, who continues his drive through the field. Actually, he's got chops all over the back of him. Or was that an overtake from Cosmic Spirit at an early point in the lap? We'll have a look-see and see what these guys are up to at the beginning of the lap. So it looks like he may have pulled in front just before the first corner of the lap, but we didn't quite catch that, unfortunately. But we'll have a look back at him now, pulling the gap to Chops out to nearly a second now, so he's outside of slipstream range. So he's continuing with that pace that we've seen from him so far, being able to pull away from the guys around him and head towards the front of the field. Unfortunately still down at P6, but he may be fighting for a top 5 finish towards the end. But again, it appears that most people have made their pit stops, and we are back where we started with the same top 4 that we discussed on lap 2, all together at the top of the field. So Scatters, the point leader for the championship at the moment, he sits in P4, 1.7 seconds down from Daddy in P3, and now P2 as he goes by the pits with Ando currently sitting in the pits, getting his fuel and going onto some softs for his final stint of the race. Daddy we spoke about just before, the race winner from last week, performing well once again. And then someone who was a little bit absent last week, Slappers in the Volkswagen Beetle wearing the champion livery. Not sure about his point tally at the moment on the championship standings, but this will serve to improve that significantly with the 30 points from this race. Currently with a healthy 6-second lead over Daddy behind him in the Aston Martin, and only going to extend that that gap over the next part of the lap. Through the technical section he goes in that Beetle. Looking good as ever in the black and green livery made by Aussie Hypnotic. Good sounding car as well. I've heard a lot of people speak about it and the sound it makes. Not a sound you'd expect to hear from a Volkswagen Beetle or about a Volkswagen Beetle, but a very good sounding car in Gran Turismo nonetheless. So that gap now over the 6 second mark, 6.2 seconds to be exact now, as we come through the final sector of the track, down towards the hairpin and towards the section where the Beetle struggles the most. We've actually got the gap closed down between Scatters and Daddy again. So these two, they've been fighting tooth and nail for most of the race so far, and now back within touching distance of each other once again. We'll see what happens down the main straight. Scatters far enough back to go for a slingshot, and Daddy goes sideways out of the final corner and loses a lot of time on exit. That's huge. So it looks like his tyre's starting to really wear out there because he got on the power a little bit too early and really kicked the back out there both ways as well. In fact, it looked like he was finding it very difficult to save it, but he goes around again, seemingly not worried about his tyre wear at the moment. Very, very little gap between the two drivers. We'll see who's saving more fuel and who's working as hard as the other. A little bit of contact between them once again. These guys really going at it for the entirety of this race. Daddy, your race winner from last week. Scatters, currently point leader for the championship. This is a huge battle between these two drivers. Driving the same car. Daddy goes to the inside. He's just got his nose in there. Goes up the inside later on the brakes. Manages to sneak through that T1. But Scatters gets the switchback on him into T2. And they collide and sends Daddy into the wall. They're still side by side coming out of that corner. But Scatters takes the position as Daddy slows down due to his collision with the wall. And through the left-hander we go. Still line astern here, right on top of one another it seems. Bumper to bumper all the way around the track. Daddy going for a move it seems into the chicane. Probably not a place you want to be doing that. But he goes for it nonetheless, compromising his own exit. And allows the gap to extend between himself and Scatters to nearly a second there. Actually over a second now as they come through this sector here. So seemingly taking the risk early. Really going for that position and desperate to get it back. So much so that he goes for a early lunge in a position that you don't usually see overtakes, which really compromises his chances coming down onto the best overtaking section of the track, down at the final corner and on the main straight. He could have really saved up there and had a really good chance at going by once again, but Scatters with the pace it seems. We'll have a look to see how his tyres are doing here for Papa. But it looks like he manages to get the traction down this time around. Ando sneaking in the back now. 3 seconds down from Daddy. He's just on your picture there in the background. Here he comes. So he's made his final stop. We know he doesn't have to stop again. So it's going to be a fight between these guys for the podium positions here. Action-packed all the way to the end between these guys. It's getting quite heated between Scatters and Daddy, it seems. Really fighting quite hard between these guys. So Daddy with a bit of clear air on either side of him now. We'll go back to our leader for a moment here. 7.2 seconds Slapper's mate has over the rest of the field. A dominating performance from this driver over the course of this race. Similar to what we saw from Daddy last week. But this time the shoe is on the other foot, it seems, in favour of Slappers, your season champion from the last season. 7 seconds to the good at the moment as they enter lap 18. Or nearly halfway round lap 18, in fact. So it looks like, barring mistake, he's really got this race sewn up, unless he has yet to make another pit stop, which I doubt. MJ Scatters down here in P2, actually pulling the gap down a little bit. Nearly half a second there that he's gained on Slappers through this section. Not something we've seen from the Aston Martin drivers in comparison to the Beetles so far this race. So the championship leader at the moment in P2, so probably going to be solidifying his point lead for the rest of the night with this result if he remains where he is. Daddy seeming to struggle on his tyres at the moment. Perhaps a little bit of wear creeping in beyond what he was expecting in this race. And the gap to Ando behind coming down with a vengeance. Down to less than 2 seconds now, almost 1.5 seconds after being at 3 seconds at the end of the last lap. So in one lap, Ando has gained 1.5 seconds on Daddy, so it looks like Daddy is at risk of falling outside the top 3 here as we come on to the last lap of the race. So down the main straight we come. Daddy in P3 with a 1.6 second gap to Ando behind him. Can he hold on to that for the rest of the lap? Has he got the tyre life? Has he got the grip to keep that position from the man behind him? The man with all the hype, the man who's been talked about so much. Ando 787, the gridline racer, now with a 1.7 second gap, losing out a little bit on the main straight, perhaps not quite as good of an exit out of the final corner as Daddy in front of him. P1 currently looking like it's sewing up, 6.2 seconds to the good. Very, very hard to lose that now to MJ Scatters, your championship leader, with a 1.8 second gap back to Daddy, but it looks like Daddy is going to be more concerned about the gap behind him to Ando, the gridline racing driver. Daddy in that number 46 Aston Martin, the movie star liveried car. So heading through after T2 and into T3, the gap now down to less than 1.5 seconds. So now that the grip is important once again, Ando starting to close up a little bit as they head around the second half of the track. So through the chicane they go. How much does the gap come down from Ando to Daddy? It looks like it's now down to nearly less than 1.2 seconds. This is going to go all the way to the line between these two drivers. If he can get within slipstream range before the final corner, he is going to be able to get the drive and get by Daddy before the line, I'm sure of it. But we're yet to see what happens here. Now down to 1 second. Daddy clips the wall on the exit of the right-hander. He's a little bit loose through this section here. Ando closed the gap now down to less than a second. 0.9 it sits between the two of them. How close can Ando get up into the final corner? I expect he'll get close enough to be within slipstream range because he will be able to brake a little bit later. Through the right-hander they go. Daddy now with 0.8 separating him and Ando. We'll have a look now and see what the gap sits at. Just around 0.9, a little bit of a better exit for Ando, but it looks like he's not going to be close enough to go for that position. And we've got your race winner here. Slapper's mate crosses the line in a deserved P1, a dominating performance from the Volkswagen driver. MJ Scatters comes home in 2, Daddy in 3, Ando in 4 in the Aston Martin. So 3 Aston Martins between 2nd and 3rd place. Cosmic Spirit with a meteoric rise through the field comes across the line in P5. That is absolutely huge for that driver. And Night King in P6, a consistent performance from that driver, managing to hold it around P5 for the majority of the race. Chops comes home in 7th place after a couple of little mistakes, forcing him out of the top 5. Rioff, your race director, comes across the line in P8. A good race from him, consistently in that position for the majority of the race. Rugworth in P9. Also in the Lexus actually, and Chef Todd, a newcomer to this series, comes across the line in the Volkswagen in P10. Dropping down again to Mikes in the Mazda, comes across the line in P11. Nismo in P12, looks like he's made a couple of mistakes towards the end there, dropping him outside the top 10. And Chickamak rounding out the field in P13. Not quite going to make it to the line, it seems. Not the best car to be using here, as it seems at the moment. That Porsche not quite having the grunt on the straights, so a little bit disadvantaged, that driver, not quite being able to make it to the line. But a great race nonetheless from all of our drivers. Big congratulations to Slapper's mate with a great P1 and a dominating performance in that Volkswagen Beetle, really showing what it can do in comparison to the Aston Martin cars. So here we go then. Race results for race 1. Slapper's mate takes P1 in the Volkswagen Beetle with a 38-minute and 36-second race. 5.5 seconds separating him from MJ Scatters, your championship leader in the V12 Vantage. And Daddy, our race winner from last week, just managing to hold on from Ando on that final lap, keeping the gap to just under a second as they came through the final sector. Looks like maybe Ando's lap time tyres were falling off the pace a little bit as well towards the end. Cosmic Spirit, probably driver of the race there, coming all the way up to P5, although you could argue Papa as well from P8 on the grid. But a great drive from Cosmic Spirit. Pitted early, got off the medium tyres, 2 stints on softs towards the end of the race. Absolutely smashed out a whole bunch of positions outside the top 10 after his first stop, and he managed to come all the way back to P5. Night King in P6, he was hovering on P5 for the majority of the race, but could not hold on to the position from Cosmic Spirit. The drive from Cosmic Spirit seemingly overpowering the Beetle driver towards the end of the race there, something we missed unfortunately due to the battle at the top end of the field. Chops in the Supra, P7 in the end, a good result for him. He'll be happy with that race. He did very well. Rioff in P8 wasn't talked about very much due to being a bit further down the field, but he managed to get comfortably into the top 10 towards the end of the race, so an excellent result from him. Rugworth, after battling with Nismo for quite a lot of the race, down in P9 in the RCF. Chef Todd in the Beetle rounds out the top 10. Mick is in P11, seemingly not being able to get the Atenza to handle itself around that track. Nismo in P12 and Chicamac in P13, as we discussed in the 911 RSR. So, that was a very, very good race and an exciting race, as it didn't seem to be very exciting for the most of the race, but it was actually quite a good climax. And that rounds out race 1 for tonight's round 6 of the NTCC Championship. A great race from everyone, really enjoyable to watch, and a lot of really tight battling at the top of the field. It's really good to see 4 guys really battling it out for those top positions, rather than just one person running. Well, one person did kind of run away with it, but last week it was Daddy, and this week it's Slappers. So it's looking like it's a bit of a change. So let's see if there's anything different for the next race. You guys will know your strategies now. You'll know what to change for the reverse grid, what will work and what won't. So this should be a little bit more interesting. Hopefully we can see a bit more slipstreaming battling over the course of this one. We got to head to the race screen. We are good to go for the next round. Alright. Let's just get into the correct view here. So looking forward, we've got a reverse grid. So Fine Doctor in P1 because he didn't quite make last race. Chicamac in P2 in the Porsche 911. We'll see how hard that gets swallowed up towards the first corner. And looking back, our leaders from the last race down the back, that Lexus flies away at the start of who is that? Who was that? Was that Nismo? Cosmic there in the Aston Martin coming through very quickly. Whoa, and we've got some movement there from Daddy. Ando goes through straight up the middle of those guys. Some tight action. Nismo takes the lead up the front in the Lexus. May have been the one that we saw come through earlier. We've got some 4 and 3 wide action here from these guys. Is there going to be carnage through T1? Is someone going to get forced wide into the wall? No penalties that it seems so far. Everyone through relatively cleanly. The champion sitting down in P14, being a bit patient, biding his time, waiting for an opportunity to get through, that he knows the field will spread out. So it's probably a good idea to just sit and wait. So we got 2x2 action for Ando, and on his outside Cosmic Spirit with the position over him behind the Subaru of the Fine Doctor. Into the left-hander for the chicane we go, and Cosmic pushed wide, rebounds off the wall and straight into Fine Doctor. So not a place you want to be going 2x2 through there, and it looks like a little bit of an issue there for our winner of race 1 coming out of that section as well. A little bit of wall grazing for these guys. MJ Scatters there, not far behind Ando, as we see. And Rugworth in between the two of them in the Lexus doing quite well. Seems like that Lexus is quite good off the start, so quite an interesting way to begin the race for them. Nismo up in P2. The lead has changed. Daddy has found his way into P1. We'll have a look on board with Nismo. Is he going to look for a move on Daddy into T final? A little bit early on the brakes, allows Papa the inside line. And on the inside comes Chicamac in the Porsche 911. A little bit of contact on exit, but Nismo manages to keep it together. Holds the position from Chicamac. A little bit of contact once again, and there's Ando sneaking through, looking for an opportunity as well, but he's boxed in here. He's got nowhere to go, and he touches the back of Nismo because he can't get by, and settles back into P3. So these guys, it seems, and we've got MJ Scatters and Chef Todd into the pits to get off the medium tyres. Scatters, the championship leader at the moment, opting to pit early. Looking back up ahead, we've got a gap big enough to break the toe for Daddy up in front, and we've got the guys behind 3 wide into T1. We've got Rugworth on the inside, Ando in the middle. He backs out a little bit and looks for the switchback to go to the inside. The two Lexuses in front of the Aston Martin. Nismo forced a little bit wide, loses out to Daddy there, taps the wall on the outside, forced a little bit wide it seems. The gap between Rugworth and Daddy closing down a little bit as he profits massively from the tangle of the guys behind. Ando slotting comfortably into P3 there, and Nismo losing out a little bit, relegated to P4 just ahead of Chef Todd. So, two of the guys who were competing for the top spots up the front. We've got Ando in P3 in the Aston Martin, as well as Daddy in P1, your race winner from last week. Both races last week, in fact, including the reverse grid, so he knows what he's doing when it comes to the reverse grid races. He's managing to hold it together at the moment in this one. Looking back down the field a little bit, Cosmic Spirit opting for a different strategy this time around. He pitted first lap on the last race, but perhaps due to his grid position on this one, he's decided that he'll go a little bit of a different strategy. So currently sitting behind Mickey's and Chef Todd in the Aston Martin. We've got a move here between the Volkswagen and the Mazda. So we'll look at Nismo in P4. Looking back at the two there, and they go together through that corner. And someone's wide there. We're going to catch that on a replay. We'll have a look back here and see what happened exactly. So let's have a look from Cosmic Spirit ahead at these two. So the Beetle goes through in front, going into the final corner here. A little bit late on the brakes for Cosmic Spirit up the inside, and he gets tapped by the BMW, sending two of them wide, and then he enters the track and taps Mickey's on his way back in. But he manages to hold his position somewhat here and latch onto the back of Slappers, your champion from last season. Cosmic there in P11 now. Oh, did he pit there, I think, at the end of that lap? We'll have a quick look, see. I think he may have. Yep, so he has pitted there. He's gone from the mediums onto the softs, as we saw him do last race, but after 2 laps this time instead of just 1. So down in P12, he's going to look to fight his way back through the field once again. We've had a position change up the front between Ando and Nismo. Nismo now a little bit further down the field in P3, battling with his sister Lexus of Rugworth for the final position on the podium on this first stint. So good tough racing between these two at the moment as it sits. And then the champion and your winner of race 1, Slappers mate in the Beetle, closing right up onto the back of them there as one of them makes a mistake while they battle with one another. So less than 2 tenths separating himself and Rugworth at the moment. So he's going to be looking for every opportunity to get by towards the end of this section. He darts to the inside, looks for the inside through that corner, but breaks a little bit early, backs out of the move as Rugworth shuts the door on him. And they go line astern into the final corner here, the hairpin, as Slappers looks to make another move potentially. Early on the brakes it seems, up the inside he goes. Is he late enough on the brakes? Not quite. And we've got Rugworth ghosting to get rid of his penalty there. Nismo a little bit wide on exit, but they remain line astern coming onto the main straight. So we'll have a look here on board at Slappers. As he comes down the straight, he's probably not going to have the overspeed on Rugworth because Rugworth does have the toe of Nismo in front of him. But once he pulls out, he'll start to scrub off speed and that Volkswagen will continue to gain. So here we go. We've got Rugworth looking for a move on Nismo as they go down the straight. And Slappers, mate, looks to follow him through. He's got so much overspeed on the two of them now. Goes for the bump draft. Hits into the back of Rugworth there and pushes him right through into P3. Nismo is forced to slot into P5 here. So a lot of argy-bargy between these guys, but he's going to go for a move into the first corner. Is Slappers mate, and he takes the inside line and he manages to take the position as well and holds it just in front of Rugworth there as they enter T2. So great move there from Slappers, takes 2 and 1 going into T1 and through T1. So some great driving and strategy there from the Volkswagen driver and last season's champion. Purple through Sector 1 as well, so that's huge for that driver. The gap between the top two remains at 2.5 seconds. It looks like Daddy's going to run away from Ando a little bit here for the next part of the race, but it seems, if we're not mistaken, that Daddy may be a little bit harder on his tyres than Ando around here, which may bring him back to his clutches a little bit later on in the race. But we'll see what happens. 1.6 seconds separating Slappers and Ando, as Slappers gets through the technical section where the Volkswagen really shines on this track and always seems to gain on those Aston Martins. 1.2 seconds now the gap. That's a huge decrease that we've seen there. If you can keep it to under 1.5 onto the into T1, he may be able to launch a move on the next lap. The gap now 0.8. Does he get a bit of exit? Not quite. Ando manages to keep the gap at about a second and will probably extend that as he goes down the straight, but this puts Ando in a very good move, puts Slappers mate in a very good move through the next part of the race. Have we got much action going on back here? It looks like we do. Can't go all the way back quite to these guys down here, but there's been a bit of an incident down at the final corner. So we'll go down here. So we'll have a look at Cosmic Spirit here, just behind Chickamak. Chickamak goes wide, re-enters the track. Not quite. Oh, a little bit sideways there from Chops as well, so a mistake. And some contact there between Cosmic Spirit and Chickamak. An apology in the text box there, as you can see, from Cosmic Spirit. So it looks like a bit of a mistake from those two drivers. But not quite what you want to see through that part of the race. But we'll move on back to the top end of the field. 1.1 seconds now the gap between Slappers and Ando. The two drivers. We've seen Slappers dropping that gap down through this section of the track. And we're back into it now. That downforce on the Beetle seemingly very good through this section of the track. Nice and stable, that car, through the tight twisty section, or open twisty section you might say. It's quite fast corners here, seeming to suit the Beetle quite well. I'm interested to see how a car like the Renault or the Ferrari goes through here, because they tend to have very high cornering speeds. But we won't worry about that right now. The gap between them now, 0.7 seconds, so a huge close up there from Slappers mate. Can he get into the slipstream of Ando on the main straight? And what will he do coming down into the final sector of this race lap? So not close enough to go for a move. He does look to the inside. A little peek there to let Ando know that he's there. 0.3 separating them as they come onto the main straight. It's probably not going to be enough to slingshot by, but he may go for a move nonetheless towards the first corner of the lap. So down the straight they come. We'll jump on board with Slappers here as he starts decreasing the gap down the straight. Ando indicating to let him go, but that's going to force him to the outside. Is that a tactical move there from Ando to ensure that he has the inside for the next corner? We'll find out, although he may be saving fuel here as we head through this part of the race. He pulls out of the slipstream there because he's got so much overspeed on the Beetle. Look how quick that Aston Martin is down here. And here we go. Into T1, Ando looking to the inside. Will he go by or will he fight it? He backs out a little bit and allows Slappers to close the door on him and gives Slappers that position for the next lap. Probably not the smartest thing to do there for Ando, because we know how well that V-dub can pull away in the final sector of the lap. And we'll probably expect it to pull out a slipstream range as well. But still within as they go through this part of the lap. Good fast section for the Aston Martin here. The power coming into play quite a lot. Through the chicane they go. A little bit of a gap increasing there from Slappers, but the power of the Aston Martin still managing to keep him in play. Can he pull a gap through the next part of the lap? We'll have a look here from Ando's point of view. So now the gap down to almost 0.5 of a second. If it gets too big through here, Ando is going to have some real trouble catching up to that Beetle on the main straight, and there you go. The gap now up to almost 1 second. Those two corners are really where that Beetle shines and where it manages to make up the most ground on these cars. That uphill right-hander followed by the left-hander are huge for the Beetle's performance. So through the right-handed hairpin we go, double apex there for Ando onto the main straight. 1.2 seconds separating him from Slappers in front. Does he have the pace? Does he have the power to catch up to the Beetle in front of him? We'll have a look here. Down the straight they go. Get down to 1.1. Probably going to be able to bring it down to 1 second here, but not quite within slipstream range, I don't imagine. We'll see how he goes. Meanwhile, down in P5, we've got our championship leader and one of the better competitors of race 1 in P5. Looking to work on the gap to Rugworth in front of him. slowly bringing it down over the course of the straight in that Aston Martin. The Aston Martins all showing their legs on this track on the main straight and how much power they really have. Down we come to the first corner. The gap now sitting at 1.2. It looks like that Lexus may be a little bit faster through this corner perhaps than the Aston Martin, but we'll wait and find out. Looks like that gap maintaining at a bit of a constant at the moment. We'll have a look a bit further down. There may be a little bit of a battle going on between these three drivers. We've got three handling cars here, the Subaru, the BMW and the Mazda, battling it out for P7, 8 and 9. What's going to happen here then? BMW of Rioff on his best lap at the moment, trying to chase down the Fine Doctor in the Subaru Impreza WRX. Let's call it an Impreza. May as well just call it a WRX, shouldn't I? Sorry about that. So through the right-hander we go. Still within slipstream range is the BMW, so coming onto the main straight he may have an opportunity to go for a move on the Fine Doctor in the Subaru in front of him. A little bit of a mistake there from the Subaru driver as well through the left-hander. So through the final sector they come. Half a second separates these two drivers. Is the BMW going to be able to launch a move on the main straight and get by that Subaru driver? Looks to the inside, down to the hairpin. Probably just sticking his nose out to let the Subaru driver know that he's there, and Fine Doctor gets a little bit slidey through the final hairpin. Loses out to Rioff there a little bit it seems, but manages to collect it up just enough to get by again. Perhaps Rioff letting him go. Maybe a little bit of contact there that we didn't quite see. But onto the main straight they go. Rioff in the power seat here, able to close up on the Subaru in front of him. Is he going to be able to launch a move into the first corner? Lexus of Nismo in front of him there. Mick is into the pits as we see there on the medium tyres. Coming out, on which tyres does he emerge on? It looks like he may be coming out on the mediums. We're unsure. There goes the BMW by the Subaru on the main straight. Down towards T1 they go, weaving and following each other. The BMW driver, Rioff, trying to break the toe. Fine Doctor looks to the inside. He's got track position. And through he goes into P8, P7 rather. Manages to get it done. But no, the switchback from Rioff puts him back in P7. So a huge battle for this position from these guys. And still right on top of each other as they come through the next sector. The BMW and the Subaru. So stepping back down a little bit to Cosmic Spirit in P9, not quite having the race of race 1 that he had there, and the same performance, although he may have stopped for the second time already, although I doubt that at this point in the race. Remember that he was P12 after his first stop, currently sitting in P9. What can he do from here? He does have a penalty for seemingly hitting a wall at some point in the lap, but he's slowly wearing that off, and he probably won't have to worry about that towards the end. We'll have a look ahead here to Slappers, who is currently 1.5 seconds behind Papa. Papa in P1, Ando in P3 there. So back at it again, the same top 4 as we had in race 1. So Scatters seeming to have gotten past Rugworth at some point on that lap, something we didn't quite see. We'll have a look if they're still close together at this point. So it looks like they are. Scatters and Rugworth, in fact, within slipstream range, possibly going to be able to go for a move up into T1. 3.5 seconds separating the current point leader from Ando. So probably not going to be able to do anything from here except for have to defend from Rugworth as the gap comes down. Now down to 0.4, even less. Fine Doctor into the pits in P8. Cosmic Spirit, does he come in? No, he continues around. Onto the medium tyres for Fine Doctor here. So we'll move back forwards to Ando and Scatters and Rugworth. Can Rugworth go for a move to T1? No, he can't. He's not quite close enough, not seeming to have the speed down the main straight there. A beautiful TKR livery on that car as well. Very, what's the word? Patriotic towards New Zealand culture, it seems. So very cool to see that on a Lexus in a game like this. So still within slipstream range of MJ Scatters at the moment. So what's he thinking about? What's he planning? What's his strategy to try and move back up a little bit here? Is he trying to get that P4 or is he happy to settle for a top 5 finish? We'll wait and find out. A little bit further back down the field to Cosmic Spirit.
In a bit of no man's land, we've got Fine Doctor there with 0.8 separating himself and Chef Todd. Rioff seeming to have made a gap here over the Subaru driver, and all over the back of Nismo now, after Nismo may have made a mistake there. Looks to the outside into the right-hander, not going to be able to find his way by there. I don't think he was actually thinking about a move, just trying to get clean air over the car through that corner. Through the left-hander he goes, still all over the back of Nismo. Is he going to think about a move here into the hairpin, or is he going to be trying to go for it towards the end of the straight? Wait and find out. Looks to the inside, brakes a little bit early, backs out of the move. Nismo through a little bit sideways through that corner, and a little bit sideways on the way out as well. That back end getting a bit jittery, maybe wearing through the tyres a little bit too much. We are getting to that point of the race where these guys have to start thinking about their pit strategy and how many stops they're going to be doing and what tyres they're going to be on, and whether they need to undercut the man in front of them or if they need to go for an overcut even. So Nismo into the pits on his soft tyres, so he's decided that they're worn through enough that he needs to stop. 42% fuel, so he may be fueling up this time around. No, he comes straight back out on the medium tyres, happy to go and do his medium stint now, which promotes Rioff to P6 with 7 seconds either side of him here. So in miles of clean air here, nothing to worry about except his own lap times. So we'll step forward to Rugworth in P5. Currently 1.5 seconds behind MJ Scatters, so that gap has increased a little bit since MJ Scatters got by. So that top four starting to pull away and make it a race of their own at the moment. We've got Slappers in P2, and the gap to Daddy still remaining at the 1.5 seconds that we've seen it at, although we can expect that to come down a little bit through the next couple of corners as we've seen it do so many times tonight. So here we go then, through the Beatles' strongest corner, the uphill right-hander. 1.2 is the gap at the moment. Let's see what it is on his way out. He comes through, remains the same, so either not hitting that right this time around or Daddy managing to make it through very, very quickly. He still gains a little bit there, down to just under a second now is the gap to Daddy in front of him. Maybe a mistake from Daddy there along that straight section. 0.7 the gap. Is he going to be within slipstream range? It doesn't quite look like it. Although a little bit dodgy exit for Daddy. Yes, there is slipstream there for Slappers to take advantage of. So your race winner from race 1 now in the power seat to take the lead for race 2 in the reverse grid setup. So starting from all the way in last place, Slappers mate now on the slipstream of Daddy in front of him, ready to make a move and go for the lead at the end of this straight. Ando into the pits on the medium tyres, puts on the softs and probably refuels. We'll expect to see him do that as well. And Slappers going for a move on the Aston Martin driver's car, and he's through nice and cleanly at the end of the main straight, so biding his time and waiting for just the right moment to pass. Goes through the right-hander, keeps it together nicely. A little bit of a glitchy graphic there on his wing. You may have to think about fixing that. We'll have a look into that later on. But manages to solidify his position at the front of the field with a 0.1 second gap to Daddy behind him. But we know, and we've seen it before, and we'll see it again, that Beetle through this section of the track, or after the next couple of corners, will absolutely destroy that Aston Martin for pace. So the gap now at 0.3, we can expect to see it hit nearly a second after the next couple of corners. Through the right-hander we go, almost flat out through that corner. Daddy hits the wall, loses a bit of speed. Bit of a miss of the apex there for both drivers, and another tap on the wall there for Daddy on his way out of the left-hander. Through the Volkswagen's strongest corner of the lap, a little bit wide there for Daddy. The gap now sitting at 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. Look how quickly that V-dub pulls away from the Aston Martin behind it. The raw pace through that section of the track allowing it to really pull a gap on the Aston Martin. The gap now almost 1 whole second. A little bit of a mistake though for Slappers there. Can he get a good exit out of the corner? He manages to get it going just enough, but the gap now 0.6 of a second, so that's going to allow Daddy to make a move down the straight, I think. So the gap now coming down already as that Aston Martin gets up to speed. So an unfortunate mistake there for Slappers that has really cost him here and will mean that he has to wait one more lap before he can attempt to pull away from Daddy in front. Although Daddy deciding that it's in his best interest to bump draft the Volkswagen driver along the main straight to get them both a little bit of extra speed. So Once again, are we going to see him do it again? No. He pulls to the inside. Here we go. Side by side they come into T1. Daddy's going to have the position long before they get there. He may even be able to take a racing line through the corner. Not quite, it seems, but he manages to get the position and hold it firm there. Cosmic Spirit down the order into the pits from P7 for his second stint on soft tyres. So he's done 9 laps on those tyres, and he's going to look to do 9 once again after doing 2 laps on the mediums in the beginning. So again, we see Slappers on the back of Daddy through this section. What's going to happen when they get to the section where the Volkswagen is faster? We've seen it before. We know it's going to happen all over again. What is the Volkswagen driver going to do? Is he going to make a move at that section, or is he going to back off it and see how close he gets? We'll wait and find out. Here we go then. Coming up to that section we're just talking about. Through the left-hander they go. Here's where the Volkswagen is its strongest. He looks to the outside. Is he going to go for a move? No, he switches back to the inside. Can he go later on the brakes? Not quite. He backs out of it and allows Papa to maintain his position. So Daddy maintaining his spot at the top of the field for this part of the lap. But Slappers is once again, as we've seen before, in the power seat coming onto the main straight. Looks for a move at the final hairpin. Not quite able to make it happen. Not able to invent something. Daddy a little bit sideways coming out of that corner, but he manages to get the power down and maintain the position. But once again, Slappers in the power seat coming down the main straight. He's got the slipstream. 0.6 separating himself and Daddy, and the gap starting to come down just about now as well. Probably going to give him the opportunity to go for a move into the final corner of the straight, although both of them actually coming into pits, so we can probably expect Slappers here to take the lead after this pit stop, given that he has 3% more fuel than the Aston Martin driver. 5% for MJ Scatters, 4% for Rugworth. Out of the pits comes Slappers on the medium tyres, and right behind him is Papa in the Aston Martin. They're right on top of each other. That little bit of extra acceleration from the Aston Martin probably going to help him out here and get him down to that first corner faster than the Volkswagen driver. He's far enough ahead now that there can be line astern going into that corner. He weaves across to the left to try and break the toe, and to the right again. That's 3 moves down the straight now. Apparently warming up his tyres, but I don't know how I feel about that movement across the straight. It's probably not the best thing to be doing at that point of the race, because it was a battle for position down to that corner. But either way, we move forward. Through the first 2 corners they go. The Volkswagen managing to hold it together just enough to stay within slipstream range. And we're going to see the same thing as we saw last lap. Coming through that technical section, are we going to see Slappers go for a move, or is he going to go for it the next time down the main straight? We'll wait and see. Meanwhile, back here we've got a battle for P3 between MJ Scatters and Ando. MJ Scatters is close enough to slipstream the red line racer. Not quite close enough to go for a move here at the moment, but if we look ahead now, we've got 0.2 separating P1 and 2. Right here, the battle for track position, the battle for P1. The Volkswagen looks to the inside, looks to unsettle the Aston Martin driver, and almost looks like he succeeded there. Again, sticking his nose out into the right-hander here, the strongest corner on the lap for the Volkswagen, as we've seen. 0.3 separating the 2 cars. Good exit there from the Volkswagen driver. Can he go for a move into the final corner of the lap, or is he going to bide his time and wait until the main straight? Daddy squeezes him into the wall. No room for him to get by there. Nothing that the champion can do. A little bit wide there from Daddy. Wow, so he loses out track position there at that final corner. A little bit of a mistake from the Aston Martin driver, it seems. No. Slappers, mate, redresses and allows the Aston Martin driver back through. It looks like maybe there was a little bit of contact. We'll have a look now and see what happened. So we're going to have a look here. Gets forced into the wall, and then into the right-hander they go. Super wide goes Daddy through that corner. Unsure what's going on here as to why the redress occurred, but it looks like the reigning champion electing to allow Daddy back through, seeming to think it was some sort of mistake of his own, but it looks like it was a completely fair move there from both of those drivers, and just a mistake on part of Daddy. But either way, we continue racing. The gap down to Ando and MJ Scatters has decreased because of that incident, though, and that could be very, very important going into the next part of the race. Slappers once again in a good position here going into this lap, though, knowing that he can get within slipstream range by the end of it, given his position at the start of it here now as we see it. So 1.2, 1.3 seconds separating first and second at the moment. We can expect to see it come down by 4 or 5 tenths through that final section, and enough for the Volkswagen driver to get onto the back of the slipstream. 2 seconds now down to P3, and then 1.5 seconds back to P4. MJ Scatters, our season points leader. Ando throwing a spanner in the works for these drivers because they've all kind of gotten used to each other over the last couple of weeks, although Slappers is a bit of a newcomer to Papa as well, I imagine, because this is only Daddy's second race in the series. So after winning both races last week, he's really made a name for himself, and he's continuing to cement that here as we see. So himself and MJ Scatters have raced together once already, and Slappers is a mainstay for this competition, and he usually races every week, although last week he was having some technical difficulties getting into the race, so he wasn't unfortunately able to maintain that point lead. A little bit wide there once again for Daddy, and he gets sideways coming out of the final corner. That will compromise his run onto the main straight, and although he wasn't going to have it previously, Slappers may now have the toe down the main straight, although it looks like he's just out of it here. So not quite able to get back on it, so saved by the bell there for Daddy, it seems. Managing to get a little bit sideways out of the final corner, but just hold on to that P1 there. And again, that gap to P3, 1.5 seconds, and then again to MJ Scatters in P4. So the 4 drivers we've seen already battling it out for the top 4 positions are at it once again. An even gap between all of these drivers, not quite close enough to slipstream off one another or make any moves, but you bet your bottom dollar that at some point in the next couple of laps, somebody's going to go for something, or somebody's going to be close enough to go for something. And I'm more confident than ever that it's going to be Slappers as they come through with less than a second separating them to start the second sector, or the third sector rather, of the lap here. So with less than a second, or around a second separating the first 2 drivers, we can expect to see that gap come down to slipstream range onto the main straight once again. Starting to see the same sort of patterns emerge of this race, of the same sort of things happening. 0.8 now separating the 2 drivers, perhaps a mistake there from Daddy, but less than 0.7 now as they come through the 2 sweeping corners. 0.4, 0.3, right onto the back of the Aston Martin goes the Volkswagen, managing to pull a little bit of a gap to Ando behind him. Was 1.2 earlier in the lap, and now sitting at 1.4. So once again, we're seeing the same sort of move from Slappers into the final corner of the lap. Up the inside of the Aston Martin driver, a little bit of ghosting there from the Aston Martin driver, which allows Slappers through. We'll get another look at that in just a moment, but onto the main straight they go. Slappers with 0.3 separating himself from P2, and Papa in P2 all over the back of him and going for another move once again. And we're seeing now Ando coming into this fight as well. He's within slipstream range as well, so it's going to become a 3-way battle for first place here as they come down to start lap 16 of 19. Still 4 laps to go for these guys, so plenty of things that could change. We could even see an opportunity for MJ Scatters in behind to go for a move on one of these guys, or get involved at the very least. So Ando backing off a little bit as they come down to T1, waiting to let these guys scrap it out for themselves and potentially take advantage of any mistakes made. Just takes the normal racing line through that corner. A little bit jittery from the Volkswagen in P2. Scrapes the wall there, Daddy does, on his way out of turn 2. A little bit of a lag issue between these guys as they go through this section of the track. The Volkswagen wide through the sweeping left-hander, but he manages to stay line astern with the 2 Aston Martins. Connection's starting to become a little bit of a problem for these guys as the Volkswagen comes into the strong section of the track for itself through here. Looks to the inside of Daddy there, not quite able to make something or invent something happen through there. Scrape of the wall with the wing there for Daddy again. We've seen those Astons touch the wall more often than not in this race, it seems. Slapper's looking for a move, just sticking his nose out once again, but not able to go for anything through there. We'll jump on board with him now. As we go through the final sector of the track, we've got an indicator on for Daddy here. I wonder if that's been on for very long, but we'll wait and find out. I don't think it has. Up the inside goes Slappers, late on the brakes there. Goes up the inside of Daddy and parks it on the apex. A great block pass there from the Volkswagen driver, an excellent move and he's continuing to pull away down the straight, but we can expect to see once again the same thing happen as we saw happen last lap. The Aston Martin gaining on that Volkswagen. Goes for the bump draft, and Ando looking to the outside there, but not able to get that overspeed as they come down to the start-finish line. So through we go then, on to lap 17. More bump drafting from the Aston Martin driver in P2. Ando looks to go around the outside, but Daddy still has the toe of the Volkswagen in front, so manages to maintain that P2. Looks like no position changes to happen here through T1. As the Volkswagen hard on the anchors through the right-hander. Daddy looking to the inside a little bit there, perhaps trying to get clean air, but also showing his nose a little bit. Two Slappers in front. But Slappers, we're seeing it again. He's maintained his lead through that corner, or through that sequence of corners, and he's going to have that track position when it comes to the strong part of the lap for the Volkswagen. So here we go. The Aston Martin closes right up, but he's got nowhere to go, no way to get past to prevent what's about to happen from happening. Through the chicane we go. The Volkswagen powering through there and pulling away from the Aston Martin. So there you go. There's your gap now. 0.3 of a second as the Volkswagen comes to the strong section of the track for itself. Through the right-hander, through the left-hander. That gap growing and growing with every corner. 0.5 it sits at now. The Aston Martins are all over the top of each other. They're going to start battling now and losing each other time. 0.5 it sits. Nearly 0.6 as we come through the left-hander. A little bit of a mistake there from Slappers, but he's managed to extend that gap to 0.75. Once again, through that section, somehow the Volkswagen able to pull away from all the Aston Martins no matter what happens. So 0.8 the gap sits at now as Ando looks to the outside of Daddy through the final hairpin. But Daddy parks it on the apex and does not allow the grid line racer through. Back on board we go with Ando. Side by side with Daddy, down the straight they come. Are they close enough to get the toe from the Volkswagen driver in front? It looks like they are, so there will be something happening here down into T1. Quietly though, as this battling has gone on, the 1.5 second gap to MJ Scatters behind has continued to maintain itself where it sits, but you can expect it to increase as they head down to T1 given the toe of the drivers in front. So we'll have a look now as Daddy goes up the inside of Slappers into T1 in the Aston Martin on the penultimate lap for the penultimate time through that corner on the inside of the Volkswagen driver. Here we go. And he makes the move and makes it stick. Scraping the wall on the outside, almost there, not quite, as we've seen him do many times already this race. Slappers there, closing the door on Ando through that section of the track, making sure he maintains track position through the S's here. Coming up to the chicane now, probably not going to see any position changes at this point as they go through line astern. The Ando looking to the inside once again, offline as they go through this section of the track. Through the right-hander they go. Off the gas, on the gas, as quickly as it changes. Up the inside, just a little peek there from Slappers, but not actually going for anything. A tap of the wall there, a graze from the leader of the race, Daddy, and a little bit jumbly there for those drivers behind, jostling for position there. But now it is once again a four-way battle. Scatters has profited from this battling in front, and he's made his way up to within slipstream range of Ando. So here we go then. Papa goes defensive into the final corner. Comes back onto the racing line. That almost allows Slappers to make a move, but not quite. Round the final corner they come, and here we go. It's the start of the final lap here, and we've got four drivers who could potentially here come through and take P1 for this race. This is absolutely mega. So 0.7 separating MJ Scatters from Ando. He's actually dropped out of the toe now, perhaps saving a little bit of fuel. So it becomes a three-horse race then as they come down to the first corner of the race. Across the finish line, start-finish line they go. And here we go then. Ando looking to the outside of Daddy there. Slappers has gone through on the left-hand side, so manages to keep that position from Ando. A little bit of a bump there from Ando as they go down the main straight. And then Daddy still looking for an opportunity here to go through. And to the outside on T1 he goes, but not quite able to look around the outside of the Volkswagen. But the Volkswagen's wide on exit. He loses out to both drivers. That's two positions in one corner for both of those Aston Martin drivers. And on they come to the second section of the track. Daddy in third, Ando in second, Slappers in P3 at the moment. And the gap to MJ Scatters, your point leader for the championship, currently sitting at 1.3 seconds. So he is now out of the battle for the podium. So here are your podium drivers. You've got Slappers in P3 at the moment, about to come up to his strongest section of the track. This is going to be an absolute drag to the line between these guys in the final section. Ando looking for an opportunity to get by Daddy at the moment as they come through this section of the track, but not able to invent anything as it sits. The Volkswagen now in the strongest section of the track. Looks to the inside, backs out once again, as we've seen him do so many times this race, looking to unsettle the drivers in front. And we're seeing MJ Scatters come back in a little bit. And Ando gets a 1.5 second penalty for colliding with the wall. That might be his race over. I think it is. So we've now got a battle between the top two. And actually, Ando's going to lose out potentially here to MJ Scatters behind because of that penalty. A little tap on the back of Slappers here. Slappers in the power seat, it seems, as he comes down to the line. If he gets bumped enough from Ando behind, he may be able to take it, but it looks like Papa has managed to create enough of a gap that Slappers is not going to be able to take that position away from him. We see back here Ando serving his penalty. Is he going to hold out? We see Daddy cross the line. Slappers in second, and Ando losing out to Scatters for P3 due to that penalty on the final lap. That is absolutely huge. We're still seeing a little bit of close racing here. Further down the order, P5, Rugworth once again making that top 5 finish happen. Was he top 5 in the last race? I think he was. And Rioff crossing the line in P6 in that BMW. A much better race than race 1 from the BMW driver there. Cosmic Spirit comes across the line, P7. We just missed that battle there for the final positions. Mickers and Night King. Mickers with a much better position there at the end of the race compared to his previous race. Nismo crosses the line in P10.
Okay,
oh, whoa. We've got a raid.
What's the procedure?
Oh, yeah. There we go. So Nismo P10, Chef Todd in P11, and Fine Doctor in P13. I suspect we've also got Chickamak down in P13 as well, I think. But I could be mistaken. G'day, Sliceable Cash. How you doing, mate? So, wow. What a race there from these guys. There's your final standings, but we'll go switch over to those again in just a moment. What a race that was. So, victory once again for Daddy. So, continuing in his winning form from last week and managing to take out the man, the myth, the legend himself, Slappers mate, who won race 1. But here we go. Here's your race results from race 2 of round 6 for the NTCC Championship. Daddy takes P1 in the V12 Vantage after an absolutely amazing performance to hold off Slappers mate for so many times during that race. Slappers comes down in P2 in the Beetle, a deserved second place and almost contended for first place there, but not quite able to make it happen on the final lap. Scatters inherits third place from Ando after Ando serves his 1.5 second penalty. He earned himself at the second or third to last corner of that lap, so very unfortunate result there for Ando. He'll be really ruining the result of that penalty towards the end of the race. Rugworth in P5, another consistent performance from the Lexus driver, managing to finish in the top 5 once again. Rioff in P6 in the BMW M6, a much better performance from him that race. Cosmic Spirit continuing his form, coming from the back of the field once again after getting off the medium tyres nice and early. Mickers in P8 in the Atenza, he'll be happy with that performance after his race 1 where he lost out just due to the lack of pace underneath the Atenza there. Night King in P9, he'll be disappointed in that after driving his Beetle to a almost top 5 finish in the first race. Nismo in P10, an improvement on his first race. Chef Todd in P11 in the Beetle. Fine Doctor in P12 in the WRX. Chops in P13 in the Supra after that spin early on in the race. And Chickamak in P14 rounds out the driver's grid in the 911 RSR. Whoa, that one was even more intense than the first one, guys. Far out. I couldn't handle that. That battle for the top positions towards the end was huge. Next week, the NTCC Championship goes to Alsace in, I believe it's Canada. Is it? Is it Canada? Canadian track. Bit of a handling track, bit of a mixed bag, so we'll be Very good and interesting racing there as well. We can expect to see a little bit different from Tokyo Expressway, but excited for it.